Good morning. We are going to be talking about point of view this morning. So I want you to think for a second and try to remember what point of view means. We've talked about it this year. Point of view. Okay, so point of view means who is telling the story. Who is telling the story? Okay, so the story may be written in first person or it may be written in third person. When the story is written in first person, what does that mean? It means that one of the characters is telling the story themselves. Okay? When the story is written in third person, who's telling the story? The author or the narrator is telling the story. Okay? How do we know if the story is written in first person or third person? How do we know what the point of view is? If the story is written in first person, then you may see the words I, my, me, we, and our. If the story is written in third person, you might see the clue words he, she, they, them, their, his, him, or her. Okay? So again, point of view means who is telling the story. If it's written in first person, then one of the characters is telling the story themselves. And these are the words that you may hear. Okay? If the story is written in third person, then the author or the narrator is telling the story about someone else. And these are the words that you may hear. Okay? So in our read aloud today, I want you to pay attention to which clue words you hear and try to determine if the story is written in first person or if it's written in third person. Okay? And this story might remind you a little bit of Mrs. Matea's dog. So you see, it's a basset hound. Okay? So the name of our story today is called It's Only Stanley. The Wimbledons were sleeping. It was very, very late when Wilma heard a spooky sound, which made her sit up straight. That's very odd, said Walter. I don't recognize the tune. Do you guys notice which two words rhyme on this page? Late and straight. Howoo! It's only Stanley, Walter said. He's howling at the moon. The Wimbledons were sleeping. It was later than before, when Wendy heard a clanking sound below her bedroom floor. That's very odd, said Walter. Then they heard another clank. Which two words rhyme? Before and floor. Clank, clank, clank. It's only Stanley, Walter said. He fixed the oil tank. The Wimbledons were sleeping. It was even later still when Willie smelled a funky smell that made him kind of ill. That's very odd, said Walter, when it's almost 2:30. What do you think's going on now? What do you think the smell is? Blub, blub, blub. Slurp, slurp, slurp. It's only Stanley, Walter said. He's making catfish stew. The Wimbledons were sleeping. It was late as it can get when Wanda heard a buzzing noise that made her all upset. That's very odd, said Walter, when it's almost 3:30. What do you think the buzzing noise is? Make a prediction in your head. I predict. Bzz, 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 bzz. What is he doing? It's only Stanley, Walter said. He fixed our old TV. The Wimbledons were sleeping. It was late beyond belief when Wiley heard a splashy sound that made him say, Good grief! That's very odd, said Walter, when we've had so little rain. What rhymes with belief on this page? Belief and grief. Let's see what he's up to now. Splish splash, sploosh. It's only Stanley, Walter said. He cleared the bathroom drain. Now Wilma wasn't happy, and the children threw a fit. We'll never get to sleep tonight if Stanley doesn't quit. Fit and quit. I understand, said Walter, and I'll talk to him right now. But just as Walter turned to go, there was a big... What in the world is going on? What do you think? A big what? Kapow! The Wimbledons went flying, including Max, the cat. Wendy looked around and said, Well, what on earth was that? I'll go and look, said Walter, and I'll be back very soon. It's only Stanley, Walter said. We're going to the... Uh-oh. Bonk. Where were they trying to go? To the moon? What happened? They ended up crashing. So what was Stanley doing all that time? What was he building? Rocket ship. All right, so if we go back to our chart about point of view, who is telling the story here? Was it written in first person, or one of the characters is telling the story? Did you hear the words I, my, me, we, and our? Or was it written in third person, where the author or the narrator is telling the story about someone else? First person or third person? Okay, so I want you to think about it, and I want you to post in the conversation below whether the story is written in first person or third person.